Hello, friends. We are all deeply anguished and aggrieved by what's happening in Palestine for over a month now. And at many times, a sense of helplessness takes us over about what can we do to stop the war and to stop the injustice. So we try various means of, sharing our posts on social media, on various platforms. But there is something far more significant that I'm going to suggest what I believe we can do to end such war and injustice. And for that, we need to get to the deeper simplicity of why the Zionists are so emboldened that they are not paying heed to all kinds of protests from around the world, from governments. Lula da Silva, the president of Brazil, he called out as what's happening in Palestine by the Israeli government as genocide. He is president of the G20, which is a very powerful forum. He also talked about the thousands of children who are being killed there. It's inhuman. The Spanish Minister for Social Justice, Ilon Belara, has called out the genocide. More than 10 countries have recalled their ambassadors from Turkey to Bolivia to Jordan to South Africa most recently. Even the United Nations Secretary General, in a very well guarded statement, said that the Hamas attack did not happen in a vacuum. There is a background to it. But while I've been sharing the historical backdrop of Zionist terrorism and how it is just a continuation of the German Nazi ideology, and how the Zionists, right from its inception by Thomas Herzl in 1897 to the early part of the 20th century, actually saw Britain as their main enemy and wanted to collaborate and take support from Adolf Hitler for the Jewish homeland, which, as many commentators, including Albert Einstein, have pointed out, that Zionism was a form of terrorism, and behind it there was the greed and treacherous intent of grabbing the Palestinian land, and also, some element of the biblical prophecy of the Jewish homeland and the second coming of Christ. And it was further complicated by the Christian hatred and distaste for Jews, because they are associated with Judas, who poisoned Jesus Christ. So, in all these complications, as we come to the Palestine situation, it is very simple that Palestinians are living there. The Ottoman Empire is defeated, and Britishers promise the Palestinians that they will help them set up their nation, and they double cross the Jews as well, as they tell them also. And then the Balfour Declaration happens in 1917. So essentially, it is a case of land grab, loot, plunder, and systemic genocide with hatred and a very superiority complex of looking at Palestinians as inferior and as human animals, in the words of the current defense minister, Yoav Gallant. So I come to the very specific uh, idea that I'm going to propose, that why I believe that the Zionists are so emboldened is because there is a much deeper simplicity to it, that the kind of land grab that Zionists are doing in Palestine is in many ways the same land grab that urban areas are doing on the countryside. The same land grab and treating the local people as savage. In India, for example, the rural people are called pejoratively as gawar. So the conceptual arrangements are not very different. The level of brutality, the mass murders may be different by degrees and orders of magnitude, but the conceptual arrangements are very much the same. So it is essentially about our failure to come to terms with, what's the real purpose of human life. I mean, are we here to just, fulfill our material lust and greed for more than what we really need for a very good life? Even for, all kinds of splendor, all kinds of prosperity, we don't need to harm other fellow species, harm um other species, plants and animals, and also cannibalize on the future of the children, the youth, and the coming generations. So there's something that we need to deeply introspect and ask ourselves in our quieter moments, that is it really worth the kind of greed, apathy, and lust and selfishness which we have glorified as success, and we pit one individual against another, families against another, communities against another, countries against another, as to who can do more of the land grab, and then we make it more complicated through promises of technological innovations, which are certainly very good and they're useful in many ways, but they cannot become an excuse. They cannot become a cover up for our sins, for our greed, for our lust, for our selfishness, for our apathy to fellow beings, to our own children and coming generations, and to all other species. And this also manifests in the way we are devastating the climate and ecology that's already being to affect life in several parts of the world. So I say this from a certain moral responsibility, and also an authority of having tried to practice to the best of my abilities, to the best of my understanding, that how within the social milieu we can live within our means, for which there is plentiful, and how we can further sublimate and uplift our aspirations, our desires to spiritual and subtler levels from the gross and material, where there is limited resources which needs to be carefully and compassionately shared with not just fellow human beings but with all other species, plants and animals, as well as we must only take the income, or what is the regenerative supply from the natural resources, and make sure that we hand over the planet in a more robust and in a more prosperous condition than what we inherited from our forefathers. So, if we take care of this basic paradigm, this basic principle, that our success our achievement, our fulfillment, our contentment should not come from how much bigger car we have, how much more we can stuff ourselves with food that we do not need or the food that we waste around. The bigger house than what we really need, the needless electrical consumption, petroleum mining, and various other extraction, various other pollution. We need to pay attention to have we designed human habitats that are appropriate for our own needs. That should be the yardstick of progress. But we seem to have become distracted and really become delusional about what the true purpose of human life is in its most glorious and in its most splendid manifestation. I say this from a standpoint of being a very privileged member of the human society. In my generation, I was born in the year 1971, and all my life we have had the best of what nature had to give, what our parents, our society could give, more than our needs. And we've somehow institutionalized this in terms of which country has higher GDP growth, which country has higher per capita income. And for a large country like India, even that is so fallacious because we have so much inequity within the country. So the average is so deceptive. So I would like to keep this message short and very focused that we are all responsible for what is happening in Palestine, the killing of the children, the killing of innocent civilians, the bombing of hospitals and schools. There is a Zionist in all of us who is responsible for recklessly plundering our resources in small or big ways. There is a Netanyahu in all of us, and he only holds a mirror, just like Hitler did in his time. So, my humble request and my sincere appeal to all of you is that think for yourself what we can do at the individual level, what we can do at the family, at the community, at the city, village, at the state, province, and at the global level to make sure that we not only have a good, healthy, holistic, and harmonious life, that our greed, lust, selfishness, and apathy doesn't get camouflaged into religious conflicts where truly religious people get the blame, whether it is what we call as Sanatan Dharma, that's the mother of all religions, all faiths, as we understand, or whether it is Buddhism or Jainism, or it is about the Abrahamic sects, whether it is Judaism or Christianity or Islam or Zoroastrianism or Shintoism. There may be thousands of faiths and they must keep evolving as our thinking, as our quest progresses, as it further evolves in context to the changing times, changing circumstances. So this process must continue unabated, but we should not use the faith, the belief systems, the religious sentiments to fulfill ulterior motives that feed the greed, lust, selfishness, and apathy. In The Hindu belief system, which according to most evidences that I have knowledge of, is the common ancestry of all humans. Hindu gives rise to the word indigenous through Hindu, which in Sanskrit means the moon, which is deity of the mind. And it's the same word that is used for describing human in Sanskrit, manav, manushya, manuj. And the same word Hindu gets into Old Latin, which is also used in present Italian. And people of Hindu origin or Indian origin are called indigenous around the world. There is a deep belief and a very sincere and a very serene understanding among philosophers around the world that we must return to our roots, to our traditional, our natural, our appropriate ways of living as human being, and to fulfill our aspirations, our desires, and our need for our spiritual succor. Because when we look deeper, we are not just the body that we are so obsessed with when we seek just material comforts. We are not our mind, which we seek to entertain and please with so many fantasies and so many entertaining and distractions. We are not even the intellect that we sometimes take so much pride of. We are all the spirit and the soul. Yuval Noah Harari, who earlier on talked about humans being hackable animals, and he talked about how there was no soul and spirit. And then when 7 October 2023 incident happens and his uncle and aunt are affected in a kibbutz in Israel, and suddenly he wakes up that this is a war between mind and soul. So there's lots of hypocrisy going around us, lots of disinformation, lots of propaganda. We need to steer clear and we need to stand up for truth and justice. Thank you so much for watching this. And hopefully, as we wake up and as we rise to the occasion and as we look inside, look deeper, and we change our ways of life, we will also become stronger and powerful enough to overwhelm and to vanquish the evil criminals who are responsible for killing of children, for killing of innocent civilians. And at the same time, with our equanimity, we should also be grateful to them for waking up the inner monster in all of us. Thank you so much.